Hello guys, you're welcome to another tutorial on Sew with Abby channel. In today's video, I'll be sharing the cutting and sewing of this beautiful off-shoulder dress with front slit. This dress is simple to make and it can be achieved with any fabric of your choice. If this video interests you, then keep watching. Let's get into it. To make this dress, I'll be using crepe fabric, which is 3 yards. Like I mentioned before, you can make use of any fabric of your choice, and the first thing I'll do is to fold my fabric into 4 to cut out the skirt part, which is the lower part of this dress. I use the bigger part of my body measurement, which is my hip, to fold this out, and I added extra inches for allowance. This is the front, it is on fold, and this is the back with 1.5 inches zipper allowance added to it. At the top here, I'll draw a straight line, which is the starting line or the waistline, and from there I'll take all the necessary measurements. The first measurement I'll take is my hip line, which is 10.5 inches, and then from the starting line again I'll measure my knee length, which is 20 inches, and then I'll measure the length of this dress. Since I'm making the 3/4 version of this dress, the total length I'll be using is 49 inches. So for the skirt part, the length will be 33 and the top part will be 16 inches, and I went ahead to add 2 extra inches for hem allowance. Again, this is the waistline, the hip line, the knee line, the hem line, and the allowance line. Now the next thing to do is to start taking the round measurement. I'll place my tape where the fabric is on fold, which is the front piece, then take my waist circumference divided by 4 plus 1 inch for that and 1 inch for stitching allowance. Then I'll measure my hip circumference as well, divided by 4 plus 1 inch stitching allowance. Then I'll use my French curve to connect the lines together. Now for my round knee measurement, I'll subtract 1 inch from what I have on my hip line. I have 10.5 on my hip line, so I'll mark 9.5 inches here. Then I'll add 1 inch stitching allowance, or you can just take your hip measurement without adding stitching allowance. It is still the same thing. Now on the hem line, I'll measure exactly what I have on my knee line, and then I'll measure the same thing on the allowance line. Then I'll connect the lines together. At the waist part of the zipper allowance, I'll measure 1 inch, then 1.5 inches at the hip line, and then connect the lines together. On the knee line, I measured 1 inch, and I'll measure the same thing at the hem line. Now I'll cut on the lines and mark out the darts after cutting. Now for my dart, I'll place my tape on the front piece where the fabric is on fold. I'll be using my bust band, which is my nipple to nipple measurement, to mark the dart, and it is 4 inches. For the length, I'll mark 4.5 inches. Note that this is not fixed measurement, and then I'll connect the points together. Now I'll mark ½ inch on both sides of this straight line, then connect the points to the base like so. Afterwards, I'll notch the center of this dart. This is just to duplicate the dart width on the other side of the front piece as well as the back piece. Now I'll open up the front to mark where the slit will be. Remember, I notched the dart width of 4 inches at the top earlier, so from the center I'll mark that 4-inch dart width all the way to the hem. Then I'll connect the dots together. Now I'll cut on the line. So guys, we are done cutting the skirt part, and I will set it aside to cut the upper part. For the upper part, I've folded my fabric into 4, and this is the front piece and this is the back piece. I had a zipper allowance of 1.5 inches. Here I used my bust measurement to fold this out. My bust measurement divided by 4, then I added extra inches for allowance. And for the length, remember I mentioned while cutting the skirt part that the upper part will be 16 inches, but I didn't cut 16 inches here because we are working on off shoulder dress. You need to take away some inches before you measure your length. So here I took away 6 inches, and from that 6 inches I'll continue to take the vertical measurement. My bust point, which is 9.5 inches, and my under bust, which is 13 inches, and the length of this upper part, which is 16 plus 1 inch for stitching allowance. I don't need to mark it out because I have exactly 17 inches there. Now I'll connect the lines together. Next thing to do is to take my neck width. I'll be using my shoulder measurement to do that. My shoulder divided by 2 is 7.5. Then I'll subtract 2.5 inches from it, which makes my neck width 5 inches. Then I'll mark my armhole depth. To get your armhole depth, simply divide your bust circumference by 6, then add 1.5 inches to it. That is how you get your armhole depth. Then I'll draw a straight line. This is the line we do tag the chest line. Next thing to do is to get my armhole cuff. To get your armhole cuff, you divide your bust circumference by 4, mark it on the chest line. So I'll use my pattern cuff to create the cuff. Now I will add 1 inch seam allowance here, and then I'll measure my waist circumference divided by 4, add 1 inch for that, and 1 inch for seam. Then I'll connect the lines together. I will also extend the armhole line. The next thing to do is to get the neck depth. Remember we measured 6 inches up earlier. Then I'll just add 1 inch to it, making the neck depth 7 inches. Then I'll cuff it towards the top part to create a sweetheart neckline. The next thing I'm going to do is to cut this out. So guys, for the back neck depth, I'll come down by 1.5 inches, and then I'll draw a line towards the armhole. Then I'll cut it out. At the waist side of the zipper allowance, I'll measure ½ inch. Then I'll cut it off. This is to eliminate zipper bulge at that side. And then the ½ inch I measured out, I'll measure it inside as well. Then connect it to the zipper allowance line so that when I'm fixing my zipper, it will be slant, not straight. Okay guys, I'm done cutting the upper part, and this is what the front piece looks like, and this is what the back look like as well. The next thing I want to do now is to mark that. I'm yet to mark the dart, so I'll place it back on each other, and then from the center fold I'll measure 4 inches. That is my bust pan, that is my nipple to nipple measurement. Then I'll notch the front and back pieces together. Now the next thing to do is to cut facing. I'm cutting the front facing first. This is the piece I'm using and it is on fold. After setting the facing under the front piece, I'll go ahead to trace the neckline and then cut the length I want it to be. And this is what the facing looks like. Now I'll cut the back facing as well. Now I'll head over to the sewing machine to start stitching. This is how I will stitch the facing to the main piece. and then I'll turn it to the other side and use hemming gum to hold it down. I will also do the same thing to the front piece, and I'll come back to show us what I've done. Alright guys, I'm done stitching the facing to the main piece, and this is what I have. I used hemming gum to hold down the facing to the main piece, and this is what the back looks like. Now the next thing to do is to hold the darts. I'm gonna head to use iron to create like a gator line where I mark the darts, and this is it. So I'll just turn it to the wrong side and then measure the length I want the dart to be. I want the length to be 5.5 inches, so I've marked that, and then the width is just ½ inch. Then this is how I'm going to stitch it when I get to the sewing machine. I'll do that to the other side and then the back pieces as well. Okay guys, I'm done stitching the darts, and this is what I have. I also went ahead to give it a good press. I did the same thing to the back pieces as well, and this is what it looks like. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to set this upper part aside because I want to work on the skirt part. Okay guys, I'm working on the front piece first, and the first thing I'm going to do is to measure 20 inches from the top, because I'm going to stitch all the way from the top and stop at that 20 inches. That is where I want the slit to start from. So now I'll just use pin to hold these two pieces together and then head over to the sewing machine to stitch it and stop at this point. I will also hold this side of that. So guys, after stitching, this is what I have, and this is my slit. I turned in the edges and then I stitched. I also stitched this dart as well, and this is what the right side looks like. I also did the same thing to the back pieces. The next thing to do now is to join the upper and the lower parts together. I'll first notch the center of these two and then place the top on the skirt, right side facing each other, and pin the notch parts, making sure the dart aligns. And I will head over to the sewing machine to stitch. I will also do the same to the back. So guys, I'm done stitching, and this is what I have. I also did the same thing to the back, and this is it. So the next thing I'm going to do is to fix the zipper, but first I'll need to mark the zipper allowance. Now there's already a line indicating where the zipper will be here, so I'll just retrace it with my chalk. After that, I'll come to the hip line and then mark 1 inch. I'll mark the same thing at the knee line, then I'll connect together. So when I'm fixing the zipper, this is how I'm going to fix it, and I'll stop at the hip line here. At the hem, I'll measure 1 inch as well, then draw a line towards the knee. I will head over to the sewing machine now to stitch from the hem and stop here, and this is how the zipper will be fixed. Alright guys, I'm done fixing the zipper, and this is what it looks like. The next thing I'm going to do is to join the front and back together. So I'm going to place the front piece on the back, right side facing each other. I will stitch both sides using 1 inch seam allowance left for it while cutting. Alright guys, I'm done stitching the sides, and this is what I have. Next thing to do is to work on the sleeve. This is the piece for the sleeves. I folded it into 4 because I'll be cutting the 2 sleeves together. The actual length I'm using for this sleeve is 24 inches, but I have 22 inches here plus 1 inch stitching allowance, making it 23 inches. When I add band, because there's going to be band here, it will add up to the actual length I need, and the width is 29 inches, 14.5 on fold. Now I'm going to mark armhole on the sleeve. I went ahead to measure the armhole on the dress, and I measured 4 inches on fold. So I mark out 5 inches instead because I'm still going to join the sleeve. Alright, I'll open up the sleeve and then head over to the sewing machine to run loose stitch all the way to the end for gathers. I'm going to gather the upper and the lower parts. Okay guys, I'm done running the loose stitch and I'll just pick one thread here and start pulling on the thread to gather the sleeve. I'll keep pulling till the end of the sleeve. I will also do the same to the top part of the sleeve. Okay guys, this is what I have after pulling the thread. Now I'll bring in my band. I used my wrist measurement to cut this out and I added 1 inch for stitching. The width is 2.5. After joining it will be 2 inches. Now I'll notch the center of the band. I already notched the center of the sleeve. I can now attach the band to the sleeve and I'll make sure that the notch part aligns. Then I will arrange the gather on the band and pin it down. After I was done arranging, this is what I have and this is what the other side looks like. So after stitching, I will use this part to cover it up and then fold it in like so and then top stitch. Now for the top of the sleeve, this is the piece I will use to turn it in. The length is 13 inches. Remember the 6 inches we left out while cutting. It is that 6 inches we will use for the top of this sleeve, but it will be double, which is 12 inches. But I added 1 inch extra for stitching allowance. That was what made it 13 inches. So whatever you left out while cutting, be it 5 or 5.5, just double it for the top of your sleeve. For the width is 2 inches. Now I will notch the center of the band and then attach it to the sleeve. The notch parts we align, and I will repeat the same process of stitching and top stitching. And this is what I will have after stitching. I'll go ahead now to do the second sleeve like this. Alright guys, I'm done stitching and I also closed the sides of the sleeve. The next thing to do now is to attach the sleeves to the dress. So I will open up the armhole such that the line at the side of the dress is facing up, and the part where the sleeve is closed is where I will attach to the dress. I will pin it round and this is what I will have when I'm done stitching. I'll go ahead now to stitch this, then I'll stitch the other sleeve as well. Okay guys, I'm done attaching the sleeve to the dress and you can see it came out nice. The last thing I'm going to do here is to hem the down part. Thanks for watching guys. Hope you find this tutorial helpful. Please give this video a thumbs up, and if you are yet to subscribe to this channel, kindly subscribe and turn on post notification so that whenever I post new video you will be notified. See you in my next one.